And it's time now for French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France with Solange Mougin. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Monty.
So this week, you're digging into the history of the changing face of the French midday break.
Yeah, there has been so much tragedy and heartbreak in the news that I thought we could use a break. So why not talk about the French lunch break? Now, you could argue it is even a bit of a cultural cornerstone here in France, with laws and even the rhythm of daily life often working around this midday timeout.
On fait des journées qui sont parfois longues et fastidieuses, donc le midi, c'est vraiment un moment où on prend le temps entre collègues de se reposer, de parler d'autres choses.
On veut prendre à la fois du temps et en même temps trouver des goûts, des saveurs qui nous plaisent.
So naturally, our word of the day is la pause déjeuner, or lunch break. And it's actually often shortened to pause déj, as many people know. Outside Paris, towns and shops and many places close down for this midday break so people can head home or go out to eat with colleagues.
Now, is this something that is mandatory across the country, or is this up to the employer?
Well, French labor laws, they require for every 6 hours of work at least 20 minutes off. There's also a law that states that you are not allowed to eat at your desk. But as anyone at France 24 will tell you, this is not really enforced. Companies with 50 or more employees also must have a space where you can eat your meal that is not your desk. And sometimes there are even communal kitchens in offices.
Je fais mes pâtes au pesto comme si j'étais chez moi.
Now, if there isn't a dining area or a cafeteria, there are often things called tickets restaurant. Nearly 5 million French workers have these vouchers, which are actually partially paid by employers.
Permet des pauses un peu plus longues où on prend entrée, plat, dessert que juste un petit sandwich devant son ordinateur.
These tickets restaurant also help restaurants and the takeout industries boost their clientele.
Solange, let's go back in time a bit. What is the origin of the lunch break here in France?
Well, contrary to what one might think, it is not about the good life. When the Industrial Revolution took off, people's time needed to be synchronized for productivity reasons. Earlier, I spoke to food historian Martin Brugel, and he explained that before centralized air and air conditioning, factories were actually dangerous places to breathe, let alone eat.
Legislators started to think about what was the best opportunity, the best moment in the day to ventilate the rooms where people worked. And of course, they came down on the midday meal. So there was a regulation enacted around 1900, said that people have to leave the workroom for lunch. And that had actually an impact on illnesses like tuberculosis.
Well, so the lunch break is really part of daily life. How long do French people take for their lunch breaks, Solange?
Well, in 1975, so way before now, the average break was 1 hour and 38 minutes. In 2018, it was 39 minutes, so an hour less, but that was still longer than the US, the UK, and Germany. As for today, in France, the time has actually gone up over the last few years. According to the economic paper Les Echos, French people on average take a 50-minute break, which is important to note. It is an unpaid time. The employer doesn't pay you to go out to lunch. Nationally, it is Brittany and the Paris region that are on the top of the list, the top break takers, where 69 and 65% say they take between 1 and 2 hours. But that break isn't always spent eating, even if France has the 2 hour per day world record of spending the most time at table, at the dinner table. Sometimes eating on the go is a must, and it hasn't always been a gastronomical moment.
Allez. Pas fameux, mais enfin, on se contente de ce qu'on nous donne.
On va travailler là, on est déjà en retard et voilà, on a fait 5 minutes.
C'est assez bon et puis ça tient l'estomac aussi.
We saw some people there eating sandwiches, and sandwiches have been a long favorite of many workers here in France. Is that still the case?
It is. And since its early days in Les Halles food market in Paris, the jambon beurre, or the Parisian sandwich, has had a special place in the French's heart. Over 1 billion are sold every year. But 5 years ago, it was actually dethroned by hamburgers. Now, there's also another growing trend for French tacos. Among young people, it is a favorite fast food meal.
Surtout c'est copieux. Le jambon beurre, j'ai rien contre, mais à 4 heures, t'as refaim.
Ça devient limite une addiction.
Now, the fast food industry is seeing double-digit growth, but that does not mean that the lunch break is slipping away.
Everything points to its usefulness to people's happiness, to people's health, and to the employer's pocketbook.
Studies show that, like driving, employees need to take breaks to concentrate better. They have fewer accidents. They're generally better mentally and physically prepared for their days. They're healthier. They're also happier in their jobs, which means that they stick around.
What about inflation? That's in the news a lot. Has that had an effect on lunch breaks?
Well, workers are increasingly careful about their food budgets. Some 60% of French people bring their food from home in a gamelle, or a lunchbox, as it's called here. Once favored by factory workers, it remains an often healthier and often cheaper option for many workers.
Peut-être pour aller 1,50 €, 2 € quoi, maximum.
Des fois, c'est chef qui nous paye le repas, c'est encore mieux.
Now, be it a homemade bento, a tabbouleh from the supermarket, a sit-down meal, or a kebab, or a tacos, the tastes of the French workers are naturally very varied, but the meal itself, the French pause déjeuner, remains sacré.
That's all the time we have for this edition of French Connections. For more episodes, you can go to our website, france24.com.